Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel. Welcome back to another edition of the Stash Bash blog hop. If you've never seen the Stash Bash blog hop before, it's a hop of a bunch of crafters who get together and try and use up the supplies we have rather than constantly buy new ones. So the supply that we're talking about this month is out of business manufacturers. I am very strict with my purging, so the only thing that I had left was some Scenic Route paper. It's this lined notebook paper. So I grabbed a bunch of small photos. These photos are all of my son, and they are each taken in the beginning of the year of his elementary school days. So this is his final year at elementary school, and I wanted to do a layout documenting all of those tiny photos. I'm going to link down below in the description to a class that I am teaching over at Big Picture Classes called Small Photos Make a Big Impact if you're interested in that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is grab out my large trimmer. I love this trimmer when I'm scrapbooking because it is the 12 by 12 platform size. It's got the double bar on the side there, so it trims perfectly straight. You can get down to a really thin piece if you need to. I decided right now I was going to keep it at a decent margin so that the margin would be the same on all sides. In order to match some other pattern papers into that Scenic Route pattern paper, I did grab an older collection from Jillibean Soup. It's called Alphabet Soup 2, and it is a school-themed collection. So I thought it would be perfect to match with those notebook lines that I'm using as the background there. So maybe if you have some old products and you just haven't been using it because you can't think of what else to use it with, think outside the box of that manufacturer and that collection and just maybe look at theme or color or something like that to try and get some other elements in, because if you're like me and you're getting rid of some of these older things, you might not have that much left to use, so it's not like you have an entire collection to work with. So I'm going to cut down some of these library cards, and then I also thought I would cut down the A, B, and C of this pattern paper. Since these are his elementary school photos, I thought that the A, B, and C was sort of a perfect representation of that. Now that he's going into middle school, some of these younger icons are not going to work as well, so I thought I better use them up now. So it's bashing that stash as well. Just showing you that I stitched the borders on both of these pattern papers. Funny note about that, I had recently decided that I was going to pull my sewing machine off my main desk and put it somewhere that I would have to take it out every single time. And then this layout happened and I decided that I wanted to stitch on it. And that happens to me every single time I make a choice about my desktop, because I don't have a ton of space. So I really try and take off the things that I'm not using. When I decide to take something off, that's when I start using it. So there you go. Now I am just going to layer some of these things behind that photo collage there, and layer the library cards on the side underneath that pattern paper. And the more I looked at it, the less I liked the collage. So at first my thought was, well, maybe just trim down that outer margin. I just felt like the white line being so thick was detracting from the photos. So you'll see if you take my Big Picture Classes, Small Photos Make a Big Impact class, you'll see sometimes I leave things as a collage and sometimes I cut them down to individual photos. So right now I'm thinking, okay, if I just cut it down into a collage with a smaller margin, or if I cut it down to 2 photos into little strips like that, maybe that would work. But ultimately I decided that, you know what, I really just didn't like the thick white borders for this layout. I feel like maybe there's so much going on with the different pattern papers and the icons that it was just too busy, and so it was detracting from those photos, and so you weren't seeing the photos that much. So again, I'm trying everything, and then I just decide to bring in my tiny trimmer here. This is the one that I keep on my desk for cards, and I just cut them down into individual photos with a very, very tiny margin around all sides. Then I decided to cut down a piece of blue pattern paper, and the way that I measure is just to make a little fold like that so that I can just cut where the fold line is. And I know that's super lazy, but that's how I like to measure because I do not like pulling out a ruler unless I have to. So now I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to line up these photos. And my first thought was to have them kind of spread out like that. But again, I didn't like all that margin space in between the photos. I really want this to show the passage of time, and so I think they need to be closer together. So I decided to have them sort of closer to the top and flush together like that with just tiny little blue borders in between and on the sides. And that will give me some space for my title, because a lot of times as I'm working through these things, I forget about like, oh, I got to add journaling and oh, I have to add a title. So that's kind of what my thought was. I'd leave that space there. So I flipped those 3 little ABC cards over and adhered them together so that they were kind of one piece that I could easily adhere down and slide behind that photo collage with the pattern paper. I am adhering all of these strips by placing adhesive only on the side that I don't have to work with. So the left-hand sides of the pattern papers, I'm not adhering down so that I can place things underneath. And for these library cards, I decided I would strewn them out like that, and then I would take them out one by one and adhere them down. What ended up happening was I just kind of gave them too much room in between each other, and I lost spots at the top that I wanted. So I just picked them up. This adhesive is my Thermoweb tape runner. It's called Memory Runner XL. It does give you a few seconds to pick stuff up before, if you press it down really firmly, that's going to be stuck for good. Okay, so at the bottom of that photo collage where I left room for my title, it perfectly fit the word elementary. And except for that little A there that I squished a little too far out to the right-hand side and had to move him back. Then I decided I wanted "It's elementary," like "It's elementary, dear Watson." So I put "It's" with some smaller alphas on a little die-cut crayon. That is from the Jillibean Soup collection, Shades of Color. And it's really a collection about creativity, but I thought the little crayons and little paints worked perfectly for an elementary school layout that I'm creating here. So I'm just adding a few puffy stickers from that Shades of Color collection as well. And then just a few scripty word stickers and things like that, a few die cuts just to complete a little bit more dimension. I popped up that one die cut there. I did pop up the crayon as well, but everything else is pretty much flat except for those puffy stickers. Now I'm going to take advantage of those lines there and actually handwrite my journaling. So if you're like me and you're not super fond of your handwriting, you can do some funny things by really focusing on one letter at a time. And what I like to do is do some letters lowercase, some letters uppercase, some letters large, taking up the whole line from top to baseline, and then some letters just going from the midline to the baseline. And it just kind of gives it a whimsical feel, and I think goes very well with the rest of this layout and the theme of the layout as well. So that's just a tip. I am not a handwriting expert, so that's just something that I like to do when I have lines to work with. And that's the great thing about this scenic route paper, honestly, was the lines. So that completes my layout for this month's Stash Bash. I hope you'll make it through the entire hop. There's going to be lots of inspiration and probably lots of companies that we all miss so very much. And I want to thank you so much for stopping by today. If you'd like to subscribe, you can hit that subscribe button there. You can check out my website, which is my blog, and I'll have a few other videos for you as well if you'd like to check those out. So thanks again so much for stopping by today. Have a wonderful day.